have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Nick.
Let's hope my audio is working just perfectly. Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave.
And Mackie.
Who I can hear too. Yay. We're on WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio, the website. Where it's more than just radio, so jump into the chat room if you can. This is show number 305, 305. Mackie?
5 and 300.
I still love that. It's on air, online, or on the line, and on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. If you missed Solaris' show with John Savage, they were talking about paranormal ghost investigations. That's awesome. I listened to it. Finally got to hear a show. But if you missed the show, unlike me, then it only cost you $5. $5 a month. That's it. $5 a month to get access to all of the shows for all of the hosts in the archives at revolution.radio. It's so easy. And you can check out her shows and everybody's shows. We, that's Meckie and I, that's Shiny Side Out, acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. Where I live, it's the Darkinjung people. And Meckie, where you live, it's the
Daruk.
Daruk. I love the rolling of the R. And we pay respects to elders past, present, and future. And let us remember that beneath our houses, concrete, roads, and buildings are lands which have had stories passed down for 240,000 generations. That's 80,000 years divided times by 3.
Maybe. A lot of generations, that is.
That's important. We should have respect for those stories and respect for the land.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
So just on that, I'm good, my friend. I'm good. The weather has cooled down significantly.
Oh, hasn't it?
It has. It's an interesting point, though. 200 odd years ago, there was an Aboriginal warrior by the name of Pemulwuy, and he killed the head gameskeeper for, I think, Governor Phillip. I'm not sure which governor. I think it was Governor Phillip. Anyway, so he killed him. And in turn, he was killed for that. He didn't just kill him because, he felt like it. There was a grievance, and he was quite a famous, since then, he's been a famous Aboriginal warrior, and he was executed as a criminal. Now, though, I live in a suburb called Pemulwuy, because it was right near here where that all happened. And I went to the city the other day, and I saw a ferry, also called Pemulwuy.
Nice.
So it's yeah, right. It's my point is that history is forgetful. History is forgetful. You tend to not remember everything. Even the victors, we say history is written by the victors, and that's true. That's true. But over time, it becomes a whitewash. Over time, things are remembered differently, and reparations are made, to some extent, or sometimes even reconciliation is sought. It's just interesting. The perspective changes so much. It wasn't until very recently, we're talking the 70s, when Aborigines were recognized under the Constitution as citizens. 1970s. Yeah, think about that for a second. We're talking about apartheid in South Africa. We're talking about the race conflict in the southern states in the United States. We didn't recognize them as citizens until the 1970s. So, again, I think we're on the right track. I think we're doing all the right things. It's very slow. It's painful. It's not enough, but at least something is happening. And that's just my 5 cents worth on that, because we do acknowledge the traditional custodians, not as a gimmick or some kind of quirk, no, because it is truly a thing. It is in Australia. You have to understand, it does stretch back very, very far, as we have some evidence about for that now. And then I've seen the medicine holes that have been carved into the rock. We've seen the carvings in several locations. We were with a few experts, luckily enough, I guess, to have a look at that. But it's a living, breathing history. And my point here is another point, that this history is handed down orally, right? So it's ear to mouth, mouth to ear, and we don't know really how old it is. We just don't know. What we're pretty sure of is that the essence remains the same. And the same goes for all the other myths, all the other legends and all the other fairy tales, all the other cultures. They're usually oral traditions. Yeah, they weren't written down until fairly recently. Most things were only written down fairly recently, especially if they're folk tales or fairy tales or myths or things like that, right? So just bear that in mind next time you dismiss these things. People took it very, very seriously, so they learned it off by heart. Thousands and thousands of pages, what would now be pages. Okay, that's quite the memory, feat. Most of us can't do that anymore, but that's all these people did. So again, and that's to link it into our show as well to some extent, but we'll share some news with you. A lot of the evidence or information or thoughts that we've put into the hypothesis have come down to us via oral traditions that were then, at a later point written down. And we just don't know how old they are. We simply do not know. Okay, it is a straightforward thing. I would never claim to put a date to anything we give you that comes down through mythology. Point is, though, it could be indeed very, very old, Dave.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Mackie, I got back from being on holidays, and I see my father, and we have like opinions on a lot of things, and then you said earlier that the history books are written by the winners.
Yes.
Usually the victors. Yeah, I agree. And what's very strange, I enjoy talking to, and I miss my friends who have moved to Cloncurry in the middle of nowhere in Australia. It takes, like 5 hours. Oh no, sorry. I think it's 12 hours to drive to the coastline or something. It's just crazy how long it takes. Anyway, so they're in the middle of nowhere in Australia, and it's so hot. And she was my sheeple. She loved being my sheeple. When I spoke to her about anything, I was getting basically the majority consensus of Australia, wrapped up into one person. And Erin, if you're listening, I miss you guys so much. Now, opposing that is talking to my father, who basically is whatever the media is saying and has always said, and has perspective on the world. Remember, everyone that is left of a right-wing party is a communist from my father's point of view. You only have to be left of the right wing, of the right side of politics, and you're a communist. So, I argue with him. There's right wing, extreme right wing, middle right, center right, and then you've got center left, middle left, extreme left, and then past that, a long way, you've got socialism, and then further away than that, you've got communism. And I think communism and the far right sort of wrap back to each other in this kind of weird thing, like a crown that someone would wear on their head. Anyway, so every time he talks to me, he gets a point of view that he's really not that pleased with. And we were watching a Vietnam 2-hour long documentary on Vietnam. The Vietnam War, for that matter. And I waited, and I bit my tongue, Mackie. You know what I brought up. What 3 words describe the basis of the beginning of that war. And I waited till 3/4 of the way through this 2-hour documentary to bring it up. Oh, and I was wrong, Mecky. Oh, I was so wrong.
Oh, of course you were.
I was wrong to bring up the words Gulf of Tonkin, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And he said, oh, the Vietnamese attacked the warships. What are you talking about? Well, I said, well, that's how it started in the news. And then it turned out that the opposite was being said in Vietnam. Oh, it was the US that attacked their warships. And in the end, no warships were attacked by anybody.
Mm-hmm.
He said, how do you know that? I said, Dad, it's what is going on today. They've proved it. In fact, there was an admission that nothing had ever happened. Oh, but, how can you say that? I said, well, just have a look at how it ended.
Mm-hmm.
How did it all end? A promise to protect the South from the North, and as soon as the Americans pulled out, what happened? No one protected anybody, and the North reclaimed the land again.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's just afterwards. In fact, it's the basis of the war, Dad, But I had to let him have whatever he wanted because, I couldn't be mean to my dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that was a really awkward position to be in.
But see, this is the problem, though. And of course, you've been in that position many times. Maybe not with someone. Well, I'm guessing here, right? But look, you can either go along with everybody, and that's okay. There's actually nothing wrong with that. We should not seek conflict. We really shouldn't. But if you do not wish to go along and you have a different opinion, then I also think if you feel strongly enough, you should express that. It's important that you do, because we will never ever move forward with anything unless somebody says something different to what everybody already knows. Okay, because if we are where everybody is already anyway, then and nobody ever disagrees or has a new idea, then that's where we're going to stay until the end of time. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to be hated. That's okay. Eventually, people will think, "Oh, hey, hang on, there was something. I heard something. I can't remember who said it, but this is not a bad idea." And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, we all know that. That's the thing. It might be a new thing, but we all know that's the thing. And then it becomes, commonplace. And Dave and I have been burned at the stake, and that's okay. But it's
Mackie, I read this line out to my father from Wikipedia because while he's not really into the internet, you and I know how difficult it is to make a correction to something on Wikipedia, even though it's blatantly wrong.
Yep.
Even I had the same problem about IMDb. I was trying to correct them on the spelling of someone's surname because it was wrong. Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't allow it. I said, fine, have your wrong spelling then. Good luck with that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I read this line. But eventually became very controversial with widespread claims that either one or both incidences were false and possibly deliberately so. Mm-hmm. That's in Wikipedia. And that's important that they've actually acknowledged that part of it.
Yep.
All right. The only thing that happened to the US warship was a single bullet hole. Apparently. And a whole war. Yeah, let's start a whole war over a bullet hole. You could have just spack fillered, put some spack filler on there, bit of paint, it's all good. Walk away. Just walk away. So the reason why I brought it up was you're absolutely right, Mecky, and that's the kind of conflict that you can get into. Mm-hmm. Not the Gulf of Tonkin, mind you, but within either a family gathering, don't mention it. You're not meant to mention politics or religion, and I dare say you should include in that, unless you're extremely brave or someone else raises it, conspiracies. Mm-hmm. Just flat out, there you go, I've said it.
Unless, of course, it is meant as entertainment.
Ah,
In which case, let's talk about those crazy conspiracy theories, Dave. Come on, what do you think about the moon? Come on, Dave. What do you think about
it's a hologram,
Hitler?
Mickey.
And it's a hologram. What do you think about this and that? And people ask these things, and that's okay. They don't really want to hear the answer.
No, they
They
don't.
want to be entertained a little bit,
Entertainment.
right? And it's okay. I mean, look. I mean, this is what this is anyway. Partially, like this radio show is meant to be entertaining, and hopefully you can learn a little bit as you go along. But if it was boring to listen to, I'm sure nobody would ever bother. But yeah, look, and it's this is just like a large dinner party, except only Dave and I are talking. So fast,
I like
really
that.
good. So that works out well.
That I like.
Right? But the problem, of course, is with the dinner party, you reach, I don't know, 10 people at the most. And out of that, I mean, look, it's a percentages game. It's a numbers game, like most things. The more people you actually you manage to reach out to, the more people you speak to, the more people you will eventually, I guess, open up to new ideas. So if you've got 10 people, chances are nobody will listen or be interested beyond the dinner party. Maybe one person, if you're lucky. Or you go on to stand by the side of the road, like in England, in London, in Hyde Park, you got Speaker's Corner. You got something similar here in Sydney, Speaker's Corner. You can stand there as long as you want. I've gone past it a few times here in Sydney. The most I've ever seen, there was like 4 or 5 people listening to the dude on the soapbox. Right, that was it. And you can talk about whatever you want. Now, this radio show here, and all the other hosts feel the same, I'm sure, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it, affords us to reach a much larger audience in the tens of people, in the tens of people, more than 20, I'm sure, which is great. And we also now we have a YouTube channel, so you and the archive here at Revolution Radio, where our talks and musings and deliberations are captured. Well, maybe not for eternity, but certainly for the near future, which is also fantastic. So again, technology and the internet, specifically Hawk, of course, have allowed us to do this. I think it's brilliant. I love this medium. I really do.
Matthew, just to know that there's nearly 2 million minutes of us talking being played after the radio show in the archives, I think that's pretty cool.
I know, right?
That is pretty cool. There was something I wanted to bring up, and I for the life of me, I can't remember what it was.
Look, the interesting things have happened this week.
I think I sent you a couple of links that might remind me.
Yes, you did. Let me just have a quick tell you, and I'll tell you. So there was a global map of the weather.
Yeah, that's the wind map.
Aliens.
That's really cool. Yep.
Aliens and Interdimensional with Joe Rogan, I think it was.
Oh,
and then,
this is the one I liked the most.
Yeah, in Aberdeen.
Yeah. Okay,
Aberdeen.
so Huma Aberdeen and Anthony Weiner, they've called off their divorce. Mm-hmm. And there's only one motive. I mean, there's clearly 2 motives for it. Yeah. One is they decided to love each other again. Oh,
yay!
that's so sweet. Yay!
Hooray for love!
Yay! Down with love. No, hooray for love.
Hooray for love. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one is a legal reason, and that's you can't testify against your spouse in American court. Now,
that's right.
That's particularly interesting, given that they're due. So, when times are looking tough, then don't testify against your spouse. Is that really the message? I don't know. There's some kind of Marge Simpson moral here at the end, and then we all lived happily ever after. But Mackie, I was doing some trawling of the internet, not I wasn't a troll. I was a troll. I was trawling. Trawling, and I found that it's not all of that child abuse stuff that was happening, reported to have occurred, not just in Hollywood but in the church scene, from the Catholic Church. It's not just the church scene. Apparently, it's everywhere, and it was like the start at the time. Everyone was doing it, apparently. I did some research and I found it wasn't just the Catholic Church, it was all the other churches as well. In fact, I don't think there was one that was missed in the list that I found. And all about the same era. So, I mean, thankfully we're out of that period now, is that right? But I did come across something this week which disturbed me greatly, and that was a photo of Weinstein seated with Oprah. It looked like she was, had her tongue in his ear. Mm. It may not have been that, but then some other actress. That's
normal.
It's normal. That's what I've always been doing that.
How do you say hello to your friends, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? But just for practice, Becky, I've got a Weinstein dummy here. It's a half dummy. It's like a what are they use in veterinary science? They cut the animal in half. I've got one half of the animal of Weinstein here, and I've got my tongue in his ear right now. Why not? Just get ready for that career. But there was a report from an actress who said that she was seduced or lured in to Weinstein via Oprah. What?
How do you get lured anywhere?
Oh, I don't know. I think you just accept what's going on. I think that's really what that is.
I have got lollies.
Oh, do you have boiled lollies?
I sure do.
Oh, I love when strangers give me boiled lollies.
Oh, it's wrong.
It is wrong. It's wrong in every... this is the thing. They're bringing it all up now. All of it is coming out. Everyone's decided to jump on this bandwagon. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that any kind of non-consensual intervention between two people... Intervention, that's the wrong word. Any kind of thing that occurs between two people should be consensual. If it isn't, or it's been misconstrued as something else, well, then you're just a part of it.
Yeah.
If you got something in return, you can't open your mouth about it. If you got something in return. If you did something to gain something, then you're part of that. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's honestly the problem. So if you've taken part, you're part of it. Mm-hmm. And just be careful that you want to make sure you've got your wish, or you wish for enough.
Look, just two thoughts on this whole. I guess it's now a movement. Is it? It's a thing now,
I'd
right?
have to say it's a thing, Mackie.
It's a thing. And look, I'm the first person that gets sick to the stomach when I hear about abuse of any kind. I really do. Sexual abuse, child abuse. It makes me sick, physically sick. And I'm an advocate for the death penalty. I am. I say it. I've said it before. I am for the death penalty. Some crimes are completely irredeemable. Anyway.
Make chemical castration, but the chemical is a hydrochloric acid, and you slowly dip the entire person into it.
That works for me just fine, friend.
Is that all right? Would that do?
Yeah, that's fine. And people say, "Oh, yeah, would you do it?" I said, "Yes, I would do it. If nobody else is willing to flick the switch, press the button, push the lever, whatever the hell it is, I would do it." But the point I'm trying to make here is, it's maybe it's a bit much, and people are starting to jump on bandwagons. I'm not saying. So the thing is this. And again, I quote the Bible. It's funny, right? Not a very religious guy, but let him who is without sin cast the first stone. So we all not perfect. We all make mistakes. We all do things that we regret. Up to a certain point, that shouldn't affect the rest of our lives. It really shouldn't. Right? Other things, well, if you did it, then that's your numbers up. That's how it is. But so. Was there sexual inappropriate behaviors? Well, maybe there were. But like Dave said, maybe it was an understanding that this is just how the world works. You want to get anyone to Hollywood, you want to do this, you want to do that, well, then you have to do something else as well, right? I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not endorsing it. What I'm saying is that's the reality of the world. It's what happens in the world, right? So let's be very clear on that. Not something the shiny side endorses. The shiny side out is realistic, though. But now, after years and decades, in some cases, people coming forward, I mean, people saying they were protected by the institutions, by the studios, by the TV, corporations and whatever. Okay, let's bring down those people as well. The ones that were quiet, like in the church, for example, the people that quietly let the pedophiles go ahead and do whatever they need to do, just keep it quiet. Let's get all of those guys as well, and girls, I guess.
Yeah, because remember, you're as guilty and accepting of it if you knew it existed.
Yeah.
Without action.
Completely.
So that's the same mechanism.
There's no
walking
excuse.
past it occurring and doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Okay, and I do believe that some of these accusations are a Me Too. Not all of them, of course, but I think some of them. Oh, Me Too. No, I was arrested. Oh, yeah, Me Too. Really? Okay. Clearly, at the time, it didn't. It didn't bother you too much, and you got something out of it or whatever. And I mean, far out. It's reality, right?
Well, Meki, the casting couch itself, the phrase casting couch, as far back as it can be seen, published, is 1956 in a fan magazine published for a 4-part casting couch expose called It Didn't Go Well.
Yeah.
So, isn't that, it's certainly been going on for a while, and no one put a stop to it. Oh, that's just what happens. That's the industry right there. And I dare say it occurs in more industries than just Hollywood.
Yep. Of course. It's everywhere. In fact, it's probably more blatant elsewhere and probably more brutal. Who knows? I mean, the human race, like we said before, we have chosen to make this hell. It's a prison. Yes, it's a prison, but we have chosen to make it hell. And now we're living within it. It's also up to us to change that, excuse me, and not make it hell and make it something else. It's up to us. It's completely up to us. What if there was a war and nobody went?
Wow.
We had this incident, I want to say Wednesday, maybe Tuesday here in Sydney, where I think 70 odd train drivers called in sick. That's a lot. 70. That's like half or whatever. So a lot of, I was thinking, what if there was a war and people just called in sick? Yeah, no, I just couldn't come. I got the runs. Sorry, can't get out of bed.
Sorry, my schedule was booked. I was double booked for that time.
Right?
I was doing something else.
No, but think about that. I know I had the flu. Yeah, I could not come killing people. Sorry. Look, I'll do better next time. I mean, wouldn't that be awesome if people just didn't show up? I mean, let's just not show up anymore. We are now adult enough, all of us, to not show up anymore for this kind of stuff. We are, all of us listening to this radio, living in the first world nations, certainly, and second and third world nations as well. But, of course, our education is better in the first world nations. Well, not better. There's just more of it. Let's act like the grown-ups that we are. We're not going anymore. I'm not going. Dave, I'm not going to war. No, I'm not. No. What are you going to do? If we all say no, what are they going to do? Really? Seriously. Everybody says no on every side, and the leaders that want to go to war go, oh, right. Okay, let's rethink that.
They're not going to rethink it. What they'll do is just draft people compulsorily.
Yeah, but somebody has to. But that's the point, though. If everybody doesn't help them, it's the end of that. No more. No more.
I see. Yeah. Well, that's the end of that autocracy.
Finished.
I like the fact that the war would be resolute to just simply the two leaders duking it out.
That'd be awesome.
Or something, having to do it just because they decided that their entire people should be sacrificed like lambs to the slaughter.
Yeah.
The olden days style war where you just marched a cube of 300 troops in brightly colored clothes towards the enemy for apparently no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
Strategically, there was no strategy. It was just, we'll just march in there and see what happens. Oh, they all got killed.
try something else.
I think we need another group just to do exactly the same thing and see what happens.
Yeah.
Killed, all right. 2 groups of 300 people marching in a cube.
But give them green hats.
Green hats, yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Give him a promotion and a medal.
If one gets through. Just throwing people at the problem doesn't always fix it. And this is the thing. Meki, unless, of course, there is a threat so big that people will be so patriotic as to attend. Mm-hmm. You would have to play to the patriotism of the people because they stand to lose everything they've got. I don't know. I can't see. I think I'd be out of the draft anyway. The first draft, certainly. I'd be at home guard. That's what I'd be at. I'd be posted in home guard like Dad's army.
Nice, very nice. I like that.
But I really fail to see. Look, Australia has an agreement with the US that we'll go wherever you go. That's just the thing. If we're attacked, you guys help us. If you're attacked or you're involved in anything, in any conflict, we'll go as well with you. So will New Zealand as well, because they're part. We've got a clause with them. They'll help us. So I mean, you've got a lot of people on board, but on board against what? That's the problem. That's the real big thing
evil.
I see.
Evil doers.
Evil. Yes, evil.
Evil doers. That's the ones.
Got to stamp them out, Meki.
Stab him hard with the boots. The Jack. You know. I just thought of something. I was going
King
to
of dresses and jack boots.
I was going to post it on Facebook, but I forgot. I will post it though. The only thing more despised than the oppressive boot is the helping hand. I just came up with it earlier today.
Nice.
And I think that's true as well. You know what I mean? I mean, people hate. I think people fundamentally, deeply hate to be helped, unless it's a true, genuine friend or family. But even then, there's some resentment. But yeah, the jack boot. What's the future of the human race? It's a jack boot stomping on a human head forever. I'm paraphrasing. That's the future of the future. Full stop. But we have a way.
That's if the elites have their way, Becky.
Exactly. And we're segueing right into today's show, which is continuing on the hypothesis. We're halfway through our show notes here, which is pretty damn good. And essentially, the hypothesis is about the theory of everything, if you will, right? So it's everything. We, Dave and I, and others, of course, we needed something to explain everything, because nothing explains everything. Okay, there's no single philosophy out there that explains everything satisfactorily. The hypothesis, while maybe not explaining everything, it gives you a good handle on what might be going on. We're not claiming that it's all true. We're not claiming it's all, gospel. Not at all. But I think it provides a good foundation to understand 6, that we are in a make-believe world. Not an original thought. Plato, 2,500 years ago, thought of it in his cave allegory, and we talked about this a lot on YouTube. There's some really nice cartoon illustrations, like a little cartoon movie illustrating the cave allegory. It's the best I've ever seen. It's just brilliant. If you get a chance to have a look at that, it's called Plato's Cave Allegory. But the point is that we are living in this world that is completely inexplicable to us. Completely. We're not given any guidelines. As we enter this world, we are naked and screaming, covered in blood and mucus, and we just, whoa, this is not what I thought was going to happen, right? And we don't even have any coherent thoughts, I think, at that point. And everything we learn, and we come into this world completely unprepared. In fact, we're not even fit to survive, right? I mean, most wild animals, the young are born at least able to walk and run around, for the most part. We are born completely useless, completely defenseless, and we remain that way for quite some time.
Mackie, it highlights the fact that we truly aren't suited to an individual existence.
Completely.
The mother couldn't, if she was on her own, she couldn't hunt and gather and do the things that she would do, if that's all there was, and keep the young ones safe.
That's right.
Likewise, what's this, 1/3 of a 24-hour period asleep and defenseless even. So you require an infrastructure around you, physical and social, to be able to withstand any kind of onslaught. So from, predatory animals or whatever they happen to be, or even others. So you end up, having to fight your way through life.
Completely. And that's exactly what this reality is about. It's struggle. It's everyday struggle. And every creature is struggling to stay alive. And that's just the reality we have been placed into, I want to say. And we talked about a whole bunch of things like reincarnation, and we talked about the holographic universe, the universe as a simulation. We talked about quantum mechanics. We talked about immortality. We talked about other things that support the hypothesis, like ancient cultures and the demise and some of the artifacts they left behind, and on and on and on. I mean, the mountain of evidence is massive for everything, and you cannot make the mistake, and I know I repeat myself here, you cannot make the mistake of looking at anything in isolation. If you're a Bigfoot person, then you probably don't talk to the Bermuda Triangle guys, and the Bermuda Triangle guys don't talk to the UFO guys don't talk to the ghost guys don't talk to the Atlantis guys, and on and on and on it goes, because that's my thing. I know all about Bigfoot. There's no other thing I'm interested in. But a lot of the people that we've spoken to on this show, Lloyd Pye, Jim Mars, have said, we started somewhere. And then as you roll back everything, and you pull back the curtain, and you go down the rabbit hole, and you follow different threads, you realize, whoa, you can't just focus in on the one thing. It is mostly all connected. And if it's not connected, it's a red herring, which in itself is a connection, away from something else. So it is truly a very complex issue to deal with, and I mean, the research required to do it justice is monumental. Trust me, it is. And any researcher that is delving into these things would agree with that. It's a massive task. So again, what we're trying to do, and then we get right into it, is to make it, I guess, digestible for you, the esteemed listener, to give you an idea of what our thought processes were. Tell us if we got it wrong somewhere. A theory, a hypothesis, can only grow if you revise it in the light of new evidence. Okay. So
if you don't, then you're just like the establishment who refuses to step out of lockstep.
That's exactly right.
And we've made this point before. All of the new discoveries are being made by people who have no ceiling. The younger people, the people who aren't in lockstep, who don't take that, that's impossible, as an answer. They're out there making these discoveries, the new ones, and it's only the establishment which it refuses point blank, just like Wikipedia, to make any changes.
Yep.
At all. And you know what? I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. But Meki and I putting this stuff together, connecting the dots, like one of those books that you give your children, and you throw them a pencil, and you've got to go from one dot to the next. The picture isn't immediately available to them, but only once they've completed or joining all the dots. Hey, guess what? That's a lion. Well,
That's right.
That's what we've been doing.
That's exactly right.
We took the advice. We have our own ideas, but when you talk to Lloyd, when we spoke to Lloyd Pye, he said that very thing. The UFO people don't talk to the Bigfoot. They should, because there's collaborating evidence which suggests that there was a Bigfoot sighting and a UFO sighting concurrently. But if only one spoke to the other, they might have worked out that maybe Bigfoots come from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not native. Maybe they're space dwelling, like Chewbacca or something.
Who knows? We don't know. They could be dimensional travelers. I mean, the point though is that you must, hopefully you can start to see the gestalt, the whole picture. Hopefully there's a map forming in front of you. But bear in mind that reality is never described perfectly by words or concepts. Reality is experiential, meaning you can only approximate in communication what you're actually experiencing. So if you tell me, oh, the tomato is red, that gives me a whole bunch of information. It's a tomato and it's red. But what shade of red you're seeing, how it makes you feel, the suppleness of the tomato, maybe even the smell, the taste, all of that.
Waxiness of the skin.
Bingo, right? All of that is lost completely. So you've given me two phrases, red and tomato, and I've got a picture in my mind, but it might not at all correspond to what you actually see. So it's just an approximation of reality every time we communicate, and that's when we started talking about telepathy maybe being the original language, and then the language.
What's that brilliant quote of yours, Mickey? The
map is not the territory.
Yeah.
The first time I read this quote was when I was reading A.E. Van Vogt and The World of the Nalé, an American writer who was very much revered in France because he was quite existential in his science fiction and not well known in America itself. A.E. Van Vogt, if you get a chance, and The World of the Nalé. It's really very good writing. Yeah, the map is not the territory. Now, what we left off last week, though, and we have time, I think, to finish a couple of points. We were putting together some points that might indicate that our reality is in fact digital, and we are down to point number 6 here, and this is around equations creating reality. To cite one of many examples, it has been shown that the negative frequency solutions to Maxwell's equations actually reveal themselves in components of light. Were our reality what it appears to be, solutions to equations should only make sense in the context of describing reality. However, it seems to be the other way around. Data and rules don't manifest from reality. They create the reality. Right?
Bingo. So, look, that goes in line with, we were talking about the double slit experiment, just to bring you back to context, and that by having a specific rule in mind about the way a particle is a particle, or it's a wave, or it's both, during the double slit experiment, you're imposing your idea of how it should behave by collapsing the experiment in favor of your suggested reality. Only when you test it. If you don't test it, it becomes a wave again. So that's it. That's the way that data and rules don't manifest from the reality. They create the reality. Point 7, other computational similarities. Many researchers have also noted that a simulation model solves the prime mover philosophical problem. While the Big Bang theory implies a universe that arises from nothing, which has no grounding in objective reality, a virtual reality can easily boot up, or as we call it, spin up, from an external context. In Brian Whitworth's paper, The Emergence of the Physical World from an Information Processing, He outlines several additional examples of circumstantial evidence that our universe is in fact a simulation, including randomness and apparent lack of hidden variables. It never, that's point one. Point two, it never made sense to Einstein nor many other scientists that particles would behave randomly. Radioactive decay is an example, as opposed to following deterministic rules. However, in a computational model, random number generators are a simple concept even in today's systems and can easily be used to drive apparently random behavior. Think about that. And there's also a seed number that you can have the random numbers generate around. Probability waves are easy to create. Related to the point above, the probability waves that describe all matter and are responsible for the real effect of quantum tunneling, have no basis in object reality, yet are easy to construct programmatically. What's point 8? Mackie, you're muted.
Point 8 is the explanatory power. The huge set of well-studied anomalies facing us in fields as varied as physics, entanglement for example, philosophy, the near-death experiences, geology, anthropology, we're referring to UPARTs here, out-of-place artifacts, metaphysics, which is precognition for example, and psychology can all be explained only by a programmed reality model. Well, no, that's not entirely true, but it certainly is a very good way to explain it. Other theories can also have that explanatory capacity, meaning, of course, that all of these things are possible in a universe that is somewhat different to the one we think we live in. So that this can go two ways. Either it is truly all just a simulation. That's what it's saying. And if it's a simulation, then everything can be explained within it because it's programmed that way, right? That's just the way it was made. Or alternatively, our universe is a lot more mysterious. If it isn't a simulation, it's a lot more mysterious than that. But we do believe that it is. Okay, let me just, before we go to the final point, let me just clarify something which might get lost otherwise. We are not talking about this universe as being a simulation per se. What we're saying is it is a prison, a box, whatever you want to call it, a matrix in which we have been put and in which we are born into over and over again through reincarnation. But it's real enough. It's a real universe. Okay? It's a real reality. It seems that we are required for this reality to exist. If you look at quantum decoherence, we are required for it to be here, right? Doesn't mean it isn't real. It is as real as all the other universes in the multiverse, right? But this specific one may have been created for us to be imprisoned in, or some other reason, but we have to be here for it to exist. Now, yes, it could be programmed. Yes, it could be a simulation. But in this case, simulation and reality are completely indistinguishable from one another. If there truly is an origin, a source universe somewhere, for argument's sake, from whence all other universes spring, then, everything it would just be a copy of that universe, if that's in fact the model. I'm not saying it is, but once you've programmed a reality, even in our world, and in a few dozen years, we will come to a point where we can create realities that are so real you can't distinguish them from the actual reality, our reality, right? And that's what we're talking about, where it is absolutely impossible, really, to distinguish realities from simulations. And the prison we're in it's a real thing, right, as far as it goes, but it's also something that we can escape from. Sorry, let's talk about the last point of thermodynamics.
Yeah, no dramas, because we're going to run out of time otherwise. Thermodynamics and the information content of the universe. There is an uncanny similarity to Boltzmann's formula for entropy and Shannon's formula for information entropy. Their equations look very similar indeed, which is really interesting. In thermodynamics, entropy is proportional to the logarithm of the number of states that matter can be in. In information theory, entropy is proportional to the logarithm of the probability mass function of some random variable. This doesn't necessarily imply that matter is information, just that they behave similarly at a macroscopic level.
Interesting.
Isn't that something? Meki, I just wanted to shout out to Jerry B in the chat room. He says, Canadians waiting for snow to melt, Aussies watching highway melt. I looked at some photos. There was melting thongs. That's the shoes that you wear. Melting on the road, and the road melting. And I also saw photographs from Florida with alligators in hibernation under a frozen water pools. So whatever the water source was, their natural habitat, like a river or a lake or whatever it was, their noses were jutted out of the ice vertically. And their bodies go into a hibernation, waiting for the melt. Isn't that extraordinary? So that's how they still breathe, but maintain, their skin not to dry out. They're still underwater, and their heart is, slowed down, and metabolism is slowed down enough for them to survive. But thinking about how that is occurring, wow, there's a survivor of the Ice Age if I've ever seen one. Right to the music. All right, take the time, the opportunity to go to the toilet, have a toilet break, and hit the donate button or subscribe to the archives. We'll see you in a moment.
Hello and welcome back to Dave and Mackie's Shiny Side Out. This is show number 305, 5 and 300. We're talking about the hypothesis, and we are right smack bang in the middle of it. Now, if you don't know, you can donate, which would be a great thing because it's listener-funded radio. And for $5, you can even get access to all of the archives. $5. Come on. It's really a bargain, actually, these days. All right. Now, Dave, we are now coming to the I guess not the crux of it, but certainly to the point where we are going to give our listenership a way out of this reality. We can focus on the escape. What? An escape? I say yes, that's what I say. It's our emergency exit, the last escape hatch, and unfortunately closed for most of us after a certain age. Unless you had a fluoride-free life. I'm talking about the pineal gland. The pineal gland is the focus of the next hour, I would say, and certainly maybe even the next show next week. But the point is, the pineal gland is our escape hatch. Ancient cultures have been crazy over it. If you open your eyes, and we're going to help you a little bit here, and look around in architecture, in art, in philosophy, you will find the pineal gland almost everywhere. Almost everywhere. Mackie, you're crazy. How can that possibly be true? Well, bear with us. Bear with us. Here are 10 questions about the pineal gland that will allow us to set the right tone for our discussion. 1. Is the pineal gland the evolutionary remnant of a literal third mammalian eye that moved into the center of the brain and changed functions from gathering light to entraining rhythms in accordance with information gathered by the retina?
Number 2, why do the visionary states of consciousness induced by psychedelics and meditative practices seem to be centered around the very part of the brain where the pineal gland sits?
That's right. If there is no connection between spirituality and the pineal gland, how is it that the 6th chakra, the Ajna chakra, according to ancient Hindu tradition, is located precisely where the pineal gland sits, and has for centuries been associated with the mind's eye, the eye of intellect and intuition.
Is there a connection between the spiritual promise of the pineal gland, which is shaped like a pine cone, and the Pigna, the colossal bronze pine cone statue of ancient Rome, which now sits in a courtyard in the Vatican?
Thus, the pineal gland produces the body's natural supply of DMT, dimethyltryptamine, a chemical compound that produces incredible visionary effects when consumed in concentrated form, or in the Amazonian medicine ayahuasca.
Does the pineal gland release massive doses of DMT when a person dies, or when a person nearly dies, which causes the mind to have that near-death experience, or causes the soul to return to source?
Indeed. What is the significance of the fact that the ancient Egyptian symbol, the Eye of Horus, strongly resembles the anatomy of the middle section of the brain and upper cortex, centering on the thalamus and the pineal gland? And we've got a beautiful illustration here. If you take a cross-section of the brain, meaning, you dissect it and you chop it, the similarity between the Eye of Horus and the dissected cut pineal gland and middle brain section is astounding, in my opinion. It's really, it is, absolutely.
Number 8, why is the pineal gland the only organ in the human body that calcifies and solidifies with age?
Excellent question. If the pineal gland has little effect on consciousness, why is it that people suffering from Alzheimer's disease and dementia, diseases which cause them to be severely psychologically disconnected from the real world, have pineal glands that are much more calcified than those of ordinary people?
There's a good point. Number 10, and before we get to the end of this, I'd like to say something. So number 10, why is it that following the methods of the pineal gland decalcification and cleansing often bring genuine results to people who are seeking heightened spiritual experience? And why do these practices often result in people being able to more easily remember dreams and lead them to feel more connected to source, that connected to source in inverted commas? Mackie, the study that a university had performed a long time ago to replicate the outcome, to test to see if they could replicate, and they managed to replicate the outcome of the calcification of the pineal gland due to what's in water? Question for you, Mackie.
Say again. Sorry.
What is it in water again? It is
fluoride.
So fluoride is, and we've had a whole show on fluoride, but
we did.
But the fluoride itself, there's no brain filter for the pineal gland, and it seems to cause a calcification of the pineal gland, and then you have diminishing abilities. So returning them back to normal again, how extraordinary is that? Maybe it takes 4 years of drinking water, Mackie, before your past lives have been disconnected by the calcification or early calcification. We don't know.
Nope.
But that's one of those things. And you know what? It's so important. The pineal gland, and thank you to our friend on the correction of the pronunciation of it. If you hear anyone say pineal gland,
they're wrong.
They are wrong. They're definitely wrong. So pineal gland. It's the important part of us.
It is.
I think that all of those questions are the points themselves. I think they're self-evident.
Yes. And the thing is this.
I think it is our center. I think it is the chakra. I think it is the thing that causes all of these things, Mackie. It's great.
And
great.
Yeah, absolutely. And the kicker is, of course, that once you've reached a certain age, and Dave, I think it might be in your 20s, when the calcification gets to a point where you probably can no longer use it as a gateway. If you see, you have to be exposed or know about these things early on in life. You have to be exposed to these teachings early on in life for you to escape, but most of us aren't, because most of us are part of the popular culture. And I don't care what popular culture it is you belong to. None of them will give you this information. I don't care if you're born in a Muslim country, in a Christian country, even to some extent. It's slightly different than a Hindu or Buddhist country, but it is also not practiced as much as we would have thought, because the knowledge there is more readily available. It just isn't taken up as much, I guess. Having said that, most of our reincarnation case studies are from the East. Not all of them, but most of them, which means that people in the East are more connected to the mysteries than we are in the West. That's a fact, and I'll take that to the bank. But let's understand what the gland is. I mean, it's we talk about it, the pineal gland, blah blah blah, whatever. But let's understand really what it is, how it works, and where it sits in your brain. Now, the pineal gland, also known as the pineal body, conarium, or epiphysis cerebri, is a small endocrine gland in the vertebrate brain. Not in the invertebrate, just in the vertebrate. It produces melatonin, a serotonin-derived hormone which affects the modulation of sleep patterns in both seasonal and circadian rhythms. So it regulates our sleep patterns. Yes, that's right. You know how we said sleep was very important for us? Yeah, that's right. Its shape resembles a tiny pine cone, hence its name, and it is located in the epithalamus, near the center of the brain, between the two hemispheres. So it's a single gland. It's not a dual gland, right? Tucked in a groove where the two halves of the thalamus join. You can say that it might actually be the bridge in your brain. Nearly all vertebrate species possess a pineal gland. The most important exception is the hagfish, which is often thought of as the most primitive type of vertebrate. Even in the hagfish, however, there may be a pineal equivalent structure in the dorsal diencephalon. The lancelet, Branchiostoma lancellatum, the nearest existing relative to vertebrates, also lacks a recognizable pineal gland. The lamprey, considered almost as primitive as the hagfish, however, does have one. A few more developed vertebrates, including the alligator, lack pineal glands because they have been lost over the course of evolution. It's interesting that the alligator, reptile, should lack it. Dave.
Wait a second. So the alligator has remained unchanged for, like 250 million years.
Yep, pretty much.
And that evolution got rid of it? What?
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't think we've got a sample of an intact brain from 250 million years ago, but I'm going to predict that maybe they never had one.
I would agree with that.
The gland has been compared to the photoreceptive so-called third parietal eye present in the epithalamus of some animal species, which is also called the pineal eye. René Descartes believed the pineal gland was, to be the principal seat of the soul and viewed it as the third eye. There's been, in popular culture, Becky, the third eye has been the center of attention for some time.
Absolutely.
But certainly through the 60s, it was rediscovered again.
Yep.
And I know that my late mother was fascinated by the third eye, the concept, the construct, and the principle.
Yep.
Tell us more about the structure, Mickey.
Oh, okay, the structure. The pineal gland is reddish gray and about the size of a grain of rice. So it's quite small, 5 to 8 millimeters, which is just a fraction of an inch. In humans, located just rostrodorsal to the superior colliculus and behind and beneath the stria medullaris, between the laterally positioned thalamic bodies. It is part of the epithalamus. It is located in the quadrigeminal cistern and is bathed in cerebrospinal fluid. A small pineal recess of the third ventricle projects into the stalk of the gland. The pineal gland is a midline structure shaped like a pine cone. Blood supply. Now, this is interesting, guys. Unlike most of the mammalian brain, the pineal gland is not isolated from the body by the blood-brain barrier system. It has profuse blood flow, second only to the kidney.
Goodness me. So, I mean, but the kidney is a filter.
I know.
So, hey, wait a minute. Second only to the kidney?
So let's be clear. Blood flow is regulated by importance of organ to survival, right? So, just saying.
just saying. That's a big just saying. That's a thing. Thank you when you say it like that.
Right.
Other animals, the pinealocytes in many non-mammalian vertebrates have a strong resemblance to the photoreceptor cells of the eye. Some evolutionary biologists believe that the vertebrate pineal cells possess a common evolutionary ancestor with retinal cells. Pineal cystostructure seems to have evolutionary similarities to the retinal cells of chordates or chordates. Modern birds and reptiles have been found to express phototransducing pigment melanopsin in the pineal gland. Avian pineal glands are believed to act like the SCN in mammals. Meki, I wonder what the SCN is.
I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah, I'll keep reading. In some vertebrates, exposure to light can set off a chain reaction of enzyme events within the pineal gland that regulate circadian rhythms. So when the gland itself is exposed to light, wow. Some early vertebrate fossil skulls have pineal foramen, which is an opening that correlates with a physiology of the modern living fossils, the lampreys and the tutura, and some other vertebrates that have a parietal eye, which in some of them is photosensitive. The parietal eye represents evolution's earlier approach to photoreception.
Now, as a quick intersection, the SCN, or which is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, is a tiny region of the brain in the hypothalamus situated directly above the optic chiasm. It is responsible for controlling the circadian rhythms. The neuronal and hormonal activities it generates regulate many different body functions in a 24-hour cycle using around 20,000 neurons or 20,000 brain cells. Pretty cool. Okay, the structures of the pineal eye and the tuatara are analogous to the cornea lens and retina, though the latter resembles that of an octopus rather than a vertebrate retina. The asymmetrical whole consists of the eye to the left and the pineal sac to the right. In animals that have lost the parietal eye, including mammals, the pineal sac is retained and condensed into the form of the pineal gland. Fossils seldom preserve soft anatomy. The brain of the Russian Melovatka bird, about 90 million years old, is an exception. It shows a larger than expected parietal eye and pineal gland. Larger than expected. So is it possible, Dave? Now, because soft tissues is very difficult to preserve. We know this, right? But is it possible that the pineal gland was maybe larger, a larger organ which didn't calcify as readily as it does today? I'm just saying, maybe in the olden times, I'm talking about really olden times here, we had an easier escape or an easier exit out of this reality. And maybe only over time, for some reason, did our exit become next to impossible. I'm just putting it out there as a thought.
Yeah, it's. I know it's not entirely a question. It's rhetorical at best, but I'm going to weigh in on this one as well. I think it's highly possible. But the question is, why is it what is the cause of the calcification?
Yeah.
And is it intentional?
I would say yes. Yes, there's your rhetorical question. So yes, we definitely think it is. Now, in humans and other mammals, the light signals necessary to set circadian rhythms are sent from the eye, obviously, through the retinohypothalamic system to the suprachiasmatic nuclei, the SCN, and the pineal gland. Tell us about society and culture, my friend.
Rene Descartes, dedicating much time to the study of the pineal gland, called it the principal seat of the soul, as I mentioned earlier. He believed it to be the point of connection between the intellect and the body. Because Mackey raised a long while back the mind-body problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love this connection here. So Descartes attached significance to the gland because he believed it to be the only section of the brain to exist as a single part rather than one half of a pair.
Exactly.
He argued that because a person can never have more than one thought at a time, external stimuli must be united within the brain before being considered by the soul. And he considered the pineal gland to be situated in the most suitable possible place for this purpose, located centrally in the brain and surrounded by branches of the carotid arteries. Numerous spiritual philosophies contain the notion of an inner third eye that is related to the Ajna chakra. Yes, Mackie, you still there?
I am. I lost you there for a second, I think.
Oh, okay.
You had? Go ahead.
I'm still here. And also to the pineal gland. These are attributed significance in mystical awakening and or enlightenment, clairvoyant perception, and higher states of consciousness. This idea occurs historically in ancient Central and Eastern Asia, as well as contemporary theories relating to yoga, theosophy, Hinduism, and pagan religions, and New Age spiritual philosophies.
Yeah. Now let's stay on this just for a second here, because we've always postulated that the body is actually the prison, because you're driving around in it, in this reality, be it simulated or otherwise, and somehow your essence, your soul, your car, your chi, your energy, I don't care what you're calling it, has to be in your body somehow. Then it has to interact with your body, and Descartes here thought that it might be the pineal gland which facilitates the connection between intellect, your soul, whatever, and the rest of your external systems, because all the body is really just I guess an all-terrain vehicle to move about. And I asked this question before, right? So what defines you? I mean, you as a person, and this goes out to everybody listening. Is your body in totality you? Like what? So what if you lose both your legs and your arms? Is it still you? If I chop other organs off or replace them with something artificial, or give you artificial robotic limbs or an artificial robotic body, at what point do you stop being you? Right? So is the brain then? Is the brain the final answer to that question? What if I download all of you? If they were possible, and one day it might be. What if I were to download all of you into some kind of little capsule, a memory capsule, and you now reside in there and you control your robotic body from there? Is that still you, or do you need the pineal gland, or some other function, or some other object, or some other organ to connect you to you, right? Because I don't think all of you resides here. I don't think all of you is physically here. I think a lot of you is somewhere else. You can't access it unless you have, you dream, or you have some kind of spiritual experience or vision quest or something. You can't actually access the rest of you. But my question is, will we lose our humanity, our essence, if we go whole hog on the machine? On the machine expression of ourselves, if we do download our essence into a artificial construct, because that would cut, in my opinion, the connection to the higher self that we actually don't physically have and can't possibly download. Just thinking out loud here, right? So I mean, what is you, Dave? I mean, where do you end and somebody else begin? I mean, it's a tough question. Are we kissing? Yes, sure, why not? It's a tough question, though, isn't it?
It is. You know, Meki, I was listening to a song this week. A song on the radio. It's not a popular station for, it's not like the pop music station. And it was a new song that came out, and it reminded me that I should bring it up at this point in the show. And that is, how much does the soul weigh? There's a lot of talk about soul.
Oh, yes. There was a movie too, I think.
Yeah. There was an experiment done by Dr. Duncan McDougall back in... Oh, he died in 1901.
Mm-hmm.
So he weighed 6 people, and the weight of the loss of the soul was what he was attempting to capture, and it was calculated to be 21 grams.
Oh, wow.
He had the entire bed and everything strung on a set of scales, and as the person became deceased, all 6 of them exhibited a loss of weight at that time. And I think that's an extraordinary thing just to bring up there. If you're into theosophy, yoga, Hinduism, paganism, whatever it happens, New Age, whatever it is, think about, because you asked the question, who are you? Are you, and this question has been out there for as long as we could ask the question.
Yeah, that's
as long as we
right.
knew what there was, as long as we understood the definition of the word soul and what it meant, and that must leave you. So who are you? And that's how long it's been there. My thoughts are, Meki, if you were to download a person's brain, for instance, that the construct you'd have to put it into would have to contain the both hemisphere idea of storage and for memory and recall. It would have to have the pineal gland, absolutely for sure. It's going to have multiple filters and instant reaction, a code to be able to operate the body properly, protect the eyes. Whenever someone's, for instance, if you look at natural reactions, people will shut their eye if there's an incoming object, whether they recognize it or not.
Yeah.
So the brain is always filtering for incoming objects.
Yep.
For instance, those kind of things all have to be in place. So you'd have to have all of those. I think that it would be that while they talk it up, I think just bringing back to life your memories and things and your life and, everything you've recorded so far doesn't make a you.
I agree.
Okay? And that would be extremely complicated, I think, or impossible.
Yep.
To create a you from a download of you.
Yep.
Look, let's hope that that's the case, because I'm not talking about clones, like human clones. I'm talking about a robotic version of you in some way. And because I think that 21 grams is an important measurement for the thought process that when you leave, that you left to continue. And that maybe that's all the avatar requires to operate.
Yep.
Is that, because we're operating it from somewhere else.
Yep. And see, that's exactly right. So you're 100% correct. And this is really the crux of it, because there's a massive difference between a person that is alive and a person that is dead. Yeah, thank you, Captain Obvious. But the point is, that what is that quality? I've seen dead people a lot, more than I should have, I guess. And I knew them, some of them I knew them when they were alive. And yes, the physical shape is the same, but it's not just the animation that's missing, not just the motion of the body. There's something more fundamental that's missing from that body, because the body is like if you die a peaceful death, your body is completely intact. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But the spark, the essence, and if it weighs 21 grams, it weighs 21 grams. The essence is gone. The essence has left your body to, in my opinion, go and become part of the rebirth cycle again, rather than being able to escape. It's a very clever mechanism that keeps that 21 grams here in this plane, to be reborn over and over and over again, seemingly pointlessly, right? And I've discussed this before with you guys. I don't think we're here to learn. I don't think there's this whole progression thing, right? I mean, if you learn along the way, great, good for you. But the only thing that is worth learning is how to escape from this, right? Okay, and the truth is that's very, very tough. It's very tough. So we've told you the pineal gland is probably the escape hatch, but we'll talk a bit more about how to actually get out. I mean, what do you actually have to do to achieve complete freedom from this reality, right? And that's tough. That's the tough bit. It really, really is. That's hard. So I don't think it's a benevolent reincarnation cycle here for us at all. At all. I think we're kept here against our will. I think we're kept here for a reason, which is
yet to be discovered.
Yeah, to be discovered. We'll talk about it. Yeah. We'll talk about it. but the fundamental reason why we're here, or why this reality needs to exist, I don't know yet, and I don't know if Dave knows it, but I don't know it yet. So let's see though. You can say, well, okay, everybody says now, Mackie and Dave said something about pineal gland. Who cares? Blah blah blah. Clearly, it's just something they thought of themselves to make it interesting. Not at all. Not at all our idea. not even close. The prevalence of the pine cone shape, and not just the pine cone shape, that has been used to transmit this knowledge, but also the lotus flower, which is similar in shape, by the way, and was used in the East to convey the same occulted message. So it's not just the pine cone, but it's also the lotus flower. So and it's not us saying this, Dave. Why don't you enlighten us as to where we can find these pine cone shaped objects?
Thank you very much. In the Vatican, there is a large statue of a pine cone. Now, Mackie, if I was just on an aside here, right? If the Vatican called me up and said, "Dave, you're a bit of an artist." How do you like that Australian accent?
Yeah, I love it.
You're an artist, yeah.
Hey?
Why don't you make me one of those things you do? And I go, what do you mean things I do? I just make, something. We'll commission it, $1 million. We'll give you $1 million to create something. I'm not going to make a pine cone. Right? It's the furthest thing from my mind. Unless in their brief, they say, it must be pine cone shaped. And then I'm going to go, you're mad. Oh, but I'll keep that quiet and accept the $1 million and give them the big pine cone.
Bingo.
So the scepter the Pope uses has a pine cone at the top as well.
It does.
Like, where in the scripture does it say, I'm going to walk around with a pine cone?
Blessed be the pine cone.
Blessed be the pine cone, and the number of the counting shall be 5. 3. No more, no less. Sufficient similarity exists between the Masonic, what's that, Hiram? Yeah. And the Kundalini of Hindu mysticism to warrant the assumption of the Hiram may be considered a symbol also of the spirit fire moving through the 6th ventricle of the spinal column. The exact science of human regeneration is the lost key of Masonry. For when the spirit fire is lifted up through the 33 degrees or segments of the spinal column, it enters into the doomed chamber of the human skull, it finally passes...
Or domed chamber.
Sorry, yep. I'm sorry, doomed. That's a Freudian slip. The domed chamber of the human skull, it finally passes into the pituitary body, Isis, where it invokes Ra, the pineal gland, and demands the sacred name.
Operative Masonry, in the fullest meaning of the term, signifies the process by which the Eye of Horus is opened. Okay, so again, let's hark back to our earlier Eye of Horus. It is, in fact, the cross-section of the pineal gland. Okay, the cross-section of the pineal gland.
Now, this comes from Curazone.com forums.
Correct. E.A. Wallace Budge has noted that in some of the papyri illustrating the entrance of the souls of the dead into the judgment hall of Osiris, the deceased person has a pine cone attached to the crown of his or her head.
What?
Yeah. The Greek mystics also carried a symbolic staff, the upper end being the form of a pine cone, which was called the thyrsus of Bacchus. In the human brain, there's a tiny gland called the pineal body, which is the sacred eye of the ancients and corresponds to the third eye of the Cyclops. As its name signifies, the pineal gland is the sacred pine cone in man or woman. The eye single, which cannot be opened until Hiram, the spirit fire, is raised through the sacred seals, which are called the 7 churches in Asia. And then we've got a whole bunch of images. There's the catechus, which you might know if you have ever gone to a chemist. It's a staff with a pine cone on top and has serpents, wound
It's a double
around.
helix.
It's a double helix, absolutely.
Yeah.
The papal staff, as we have said, has also got a pine cone at the top of it. If you look at Angkor Wat,
Pine cones.
pine cones, and symbolism in Angkor Wat is quite telling. There's elephants flanking it, for example, and it's a pine cone shaped for a person's hairstyle. In fact, you will find the pine cone flanked normally by 2 equal things, by 2 hemispheres, if you will. Usually, it could be anything. It's elephants. It is, in fact, it is peacocks in Rome. The huge Roman sculpture of the Pigna that Dave just mentioned is flanked by 2 peacocks, representing the 2 hemispheres of the brain. In the catechus, it's 2 snakes. Even Angkor Wat, it's flanked. The pine cone itself is flanked by 2 pine cones in the structure. The gherkin is also
That's a building
yeah.
that was
in London. Yes.
It's turned by the people in London because they say it looks like a large gherkin. However, it's not. What is it, Mickey?
It's a pine cone.
Pine cone.
It is. The Sumerian god Marduk has a pine cone in his hand. In fact, if you look at some of the Egyptian Sumerian gods, they have pine cones in their hand.
They're carrying a small handbag in one hand.
Yeah.
And in the other hand, they have a pine cone with the pointy bit pointing towards something, whatever they are trying to achieve.
That's right. Dionysus, who became the Roman Bacchus, also carries a staff, a thyrsus, which is topped with a pine cone. Hitler's desk.
No.
Hitler's desk
Pine cones.
had pine cones. Yeah, there were staffs flanked by pine cones. I mean, if you look throughout, I mean, anywhere, in fact, right? A pine cone shape, usually flanked by 2 equal things: elephants, swans. I've seen swans, peacocks. It doesn't really matter what, but it is in your face mystic symbolism. If you look at it, you wouldn't know it's a pine cone with 2 peacocks. Who cares? What it represents is your pineal gland, and the prevalence of this particular symbol in not just in our culture, in all cultures. In all cultures, yeah, not just Western either, Eastern cultures, the prevalence of that symbol, that is the significance. That is the significance, the all-pervasiveness of the symbol, of the pine cone, okay? And the reference, of course, to the pineal gland. Every single culture, that ancient culture that has survived to this day, or we have some knowledge of, has an understanding of the significance of the pineal gland. Without exception. Why? I mean, we have to put this in perspective, Dave. Mm-hmm. We have had the advantage of modern medicine, X-rays, MRIs, and all that stuff for less than 100 years. So we know how things work and what the body is like, and we understand the geography of the brain. We understand the brain map. Ancient folk, they just took things apart. I mean, or at least that's what we think, right? They used to chop people up and looked inside the brain. They were smart, as we were, and they came to similar conclusions, I guess, to us. But it was a lot more laborious and a lot harder for them, and all of them attached this importance to the pineal gland. they wouldn't have known back then that the pineal gland regulates your circadian rhythms, right? The 24-hour cycles. They wouldn't have a clue. Oh, maybe they did. Who knows? That's something that we figured out recently, right? Right, and it's really this. I mean, if you open up the brain, I don't know if you ever have done this. If you open up a brain, it doesn't really matter if it's a human brain or otherwise. It's just a whole bunch of gray, pinkish stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you chop it up, and there's more stuff which is, gray, pinkish. And if it's squished up, then there's nothing left anyway, right? So if somebody had suffered some head trauma, then there's nothing much to look at. So how?
There's this lumpy bit, Mackie. There's a lumpy bit in the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
And only one of them.
Bingo. That's exactly where I'm going. There's only one of them. There's only one of them. In your body, virtually everything is divided in two, including your tongue, by the way.
It's two halves.
It's two halves. You can chop your tongue in the middle, and it'll grow, it'll heal, and you have two tongues. Almost everything in your body is dual. Because we divided as cells, like there was the sperm and the egg, and they came together and they formed the first cell, and the cell divided, and everything kept dividing, and now everything is two. Everything we have in our body is there twice, with the exception of some organs, right? But most things are there twice. In your brain, the only unique thing is the pineal gland. Everything else is there twice. So they must have noticed that when they, did the autopsies back in the day, chopped people up and looked at them. There's only one of these things. But then, how do you then figure out that it's so significant? Because it is clear to me that they understood the significance. This is some lost knowledge, guys. This is some lost knowledge from very, 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 very ancient times that has been handed down to us, that has survived throughout the ages, which we are now
pre-flood.
Oh, completely pre-flood, my friend. In fact, every flood. Okay? So that's the importance of the pineal gland. Very important.
Look at an article in Science News, stated the following. The retina, this is a quote, the retina and the pineal gland are the organs primarily responsible for the body's recognition of sophisticated processing of external light. The quote continues. Until recently, these two organs in mammals seem to have little else in common and were consequently studied by separate groups of scientists. There's that separation again.
Mm-hmm.
But a new alliance of researchers is now exploring striking similarities that are speeding research efforts in both fields. Their findings suggest that the pineal gland was the evolutionary precursor to the modern eye, while it turned out that the retinal rhythm is independent of the pineal gland. Once the groups of scientists began working together, they discovered surprising similarities between the two organs, including the presence of photoreceptors. Furthermore, a study published in Experimental Eye Research revealed that, although the mammalian pineal gland is considered to be only indirectly photosensitive, the presence of proteins in the pineal gland which are morally involved in phototransduction, light sensing in the retina, raises the possibility that the direct photic events may occur in mammalian pineal gland.
So you might actually see with it, is the point here. You might actually see. So let's just take a step back here. So there are many legends of either eyes in the middle of the forehead, like the third eye. And if you look at Hindu or even Buddhist or Eastern paintings of any kind, you will find them there, right? Usually closed, sometimes open. Then you have the eye of the Cyclops. In fact, the Cyclops only seems to have the pineal, the third eye. He doesn't have the other eyes that we have, only the third eye. So there is a thread of legends, myths, whatever you want to call it, that puts the pineal gland into a seeing context. So you can see with it, but it has to be opened. And not everybody has that third eye. Only the gods, the demigods, and the demons. Only those higher beings, if you want to call them that, right? Only they have that actively showing, right? And they see with it, but they don't see this reality with it. They see other things with it, like when we dream. Our pineal gland lets us see into the other planes of existence. It lets us see beyond. So you have the two eyes that you have here, good for you. You see all around you, which is great. The pineal gland lets you see everything else. And, well, not so much for us now. We've completely neglected it, and, deliberately we have moved away from using it. And ancient cultures still remember it, though. They still remember it. The third eye. The third eye. The all-seeing eye, even, right, that you have there. And there's some rituals in some mystery schools which are designed for that eye to be opened. I can't talk more about it, but take my word for it that there are these rituals.
Mackie,
So, yeah.
I've got a point. So, just if you had 6 fingers on each hand, yeah, you may ignore it. You may try to hide it and neglect it. But if someone threw you a ball, you would utilize it as best you could.
Yep.
Okay? So just because we have it and we're currently being taught to ignore it, we have an instant communication method now of, cell phones and Facebook and all the things that we have been given to us. Well, I think it's going to have the reverse. I think that the feeling of opening your eyes at your eye level, imagine that sensation at your pineal gland level, inside your head, being able to turn it on like a light. If you're able to do that, maybe this is the path to, telepathy. Maybe this is the path to our ESP. Maybe that turns on your telomeres. Maybe, who knows? Who knows? We don't know. But they put an extraordinary amount of focus on it.
Oh yes, absolutely.
In
and
ancient times.
And we have put a very high focus on disabling it.
Yeah.
We have. I mean, again, this is going to sort of segue us into the next component here. But there's no good reason. And I've spoken to my dentist many times. There's no good reason for fluoride to be present in drinking water. Because if it were, and I'm going to make this point one more time here because it's pertinent. If fluoride, if that was something you could take internally like a pill, there would be a fluoride pill. It is not. When you go to the dentist, it's a topical treatment. It's a topical treatment. There's a fluoride paste they put on your teeth. Right? Remember when you go for cleaning, they put that paste. Not allowed to swallow it. Bingo. You're not allowed to swallow it, but you have to leave it in there. And then when it's like 10 minutes or whatever, it comes out. You gargle. Off it goes, and you can't eat anything for 10 to 15 minutes, whatever it is. So it doesn't wash out the fluoride from your teeth because it's topical. It's topical and has to stay there for like 10, 20 minutes to be effective. When was the last time you had a sip of water and you held it in your mouth for 10 or 20 minutes? When we drink, and I want you to do this now, when you go take a glass of water and drink it. How much of it touches your teeth? I will say not a lot unless you keep swirling it around in your mouth. Because when you drink, it goes straight down your gullet. And the amount of fluoride that is in the water, in my opinion, and in my dentist's opinion, has zero effect on your dental health. None. So why is it there? Well, a number of reasons. It's industrial waste product, so you have to get rid of it. What better way than to enter it into our food supply? Whoosh,
it's a big ocean. They could have just flushed it out to sea.
True,
but that didn't happen. What they've done is they've created a system in which we are compulsed to drink it. It's even added to bottled water, so you can't avoid it. It's made illegal, Meki, where I live, to use your tank water for drinking water.
I know. Interestingly, I think in Germany they have stopped the fluoridation of the water. They've stopped doing that. In parts of Europe, they've said no. Well, you have to ask yourself, well, why? Well, if it is truly so beneficial, why would anybody stop it? But clearly,
right.
it isn't that beneficial to you.
It's doing something to us, and it's intentional.
Yes, and what it does mostly is, in fact, I'm going to share this with you now, is in fact calcify the pineal gland. In the 1990s, a British scientist, Jennifer Luke, discovered that fluoride accumulates to strikingly high levels in the pineal gland. And the reference here is Luke 2001. The pineal gland is located between the two hemispheres of the brain and is responsible for the synthesis and secretion of the hormone melatonin. Melatonin maintains the body's circadian rhythm, like we said, sleep-wake cycles. It regulates the onset of puberty in females and helps protect the body from cell damage caused by free radicals. While it is not yet known if fluoride accumulation affects pineal gland function, preliminary animal experiments found that fluoride reduced melatonin levels and shortened the time to puberty. Interesting. Based on this and other evidence, the National Research Council has stated that fluoride is likely to cause decreased melatonin production and to have other effects on normal pineal function, which in turn could contribute to a variety of effects in humans. That's the NRC in 2006. Dave?
Oh, 2006. So, did you know that, Meki, where I live, they only introduced fluoride a couple of years ago?
Is that right?
Yeah. All of a sudden, you got fluoride now. You weren't?
Hooray!
Yeah. That's a little unusual that they should want to suddenly push it upon us. And especially with the way the world is going. Is this now the in-depth study?
The pineal gland has highest levels of fluoride.
Yes, that's right. So, as a calcification tissue that is exposed to a high volume of blood flow, as we explained earlier, the second only to the kidneys, the pineal gland is a major target for fluoride accumulation in humans. In fact, the calcified parts of the pineal gland, the hydroxyapatite crystals,
close enough.
That'll do.
Yeah.
Contain the highest fluoride concentrations in the human body, up to 21,000 parts per million. Mm-hmm. Higher than either teeth or bone.
Imagine that.
Yeah. That was Luke 2001. Although the soft tissue of the pineal gland does not accumulate fluoride to the same extent as the calcified part, it does contain higher levels of fluoride than found in other types of soft tissue in the body. For instance, with concentrations of 300 parts per million that are known in other contexts to inhibit enzymes. Mm-hmm. While the impacts of these fluoride concentrations in the pineal are not yet fully understood, studies have found that calcified deposits in the pineal gland are associated with decreased numbers of functioning pinealocytes, and reduced melatonin production, and that's Coons from 1999, as well as impairment in the sleep-wake cycle. That's Malberg, 2009. So, Meki, these studies that have found this, I want to highlight to everybody that these aren't quacks. These are real studies performed but I have to say, the findings are presented to a room full of people gritting their teeth, no pun intended, because they don't want this to come out. You'll find them published on the internet, and you'll find the people who in the experiments great depth, so that they can be replicated by others. And you may not understand all of the terminology used, but when you breeze through it, you can get the conclusion and discover exactly what they're saying. They're saying the same thing as this wonderful paragraph here.
Yeah.
And so it's been known for at least 50 years.
Yeah, that's right. The impact is significant. again, if you go, well, pineal gland, who cares, right? Who cares? Well, so what? The question is, so what, right?
I've got mine in a jar, Meki.
They let you keep it. Right? So the answer is the answer is coming to us down the ages. Now we're running out of time here, so we're not going to go to the study, but we will share it with you next week. But the answer is coming down from the ages and telling us, hey guys, important stuff here. Pineal gland, look at it. Look at it.
And all we end up with is a pine cone on a stick at the Vatican.
Yeah. I mean,
what?
The thing, now of course the statue predates Christianity. You know, the Romans put it there, right? You have to understand that none of these things were done lightly. They all have significance. People back in the day didn't just do stuff because it felt like fun. It was a lot harder to do stuff back then, right? Now, we do whatever we want because it's fairly easy. We can, we can do this, we can do that. Back in the day, people really thought about things, and things were taken a lot more seriously, right? We talked about someone's word, and so forth when it came to the evidence that was found of extreme human age in mines in the 19th century. A man's word meant something, and back in the day, like if you have a huge statue of a pine cone, it means something. You're trying to communicate something to someone, but not just.
They're clearly not educated people, and. It's just a pine cone.
You see, and this is really where it all sort of comes apart at the seams. We think of ourselves as so sophisticated and so educated. Well, those guys were just smart. There's the music. All right, guys, come back next week.
We'll see you next week for show 306. Take care, everyone, and be nice to each other.